Okay, so we're back on Split again. I'm going to do kind of a beginner's introduction to Astra. I would say it's kind of a weird phrasing because I think Astra's really not like a beginner character. So if you only have like maybe 10, 20, 30 hours in the game, then learning Astra is probably not something you should be looking into doing just yet, because there's a lot of time spent like you're kind of out of the action, which we'll get into in a moment, and that's kind of the reason I think Astra's quite sometimes confusing to play if you're new, or they're quite challenging to play. You kind of have to either be an Astra player or not. You can't really kind of play it occasionally because you'll find it's quite like a change in play style to play Astra versus other agents. So the thing that sets Astra apart from a lot of others is her kind of form, which is this sort of mini-map interface that you see, and this is how you place all of her abilities. So unlike basically all the other agents, where if you're using your abilities you still see your surroundings, you're still aware of what's going on, and you can still switch to your weapon basically instantaneously. This is a little more different, so you've really got to have a lot more awareness of your surroundings, and be sort of in a good team environment. So Astra's definitely, for example, the most challenging control to play in a sort of solo queue situation. So you may not want to always play her. She's not necessarily like a staple character that you're going to play in ranked at sort of low mid elo or even high elo, to be honest. Like Omen's a lot more favourable for a ranked situation, but you know there are definitely still advantages to playing Astra. So the first thing to notice is when you're using your astral form, which is this thing you're in, the purple thing, this mini map, you're placing your Astra stars, and these are the things that you place on the ground and that you then later activate with whichever ability you want it to be. So when you're placing them, you're not picking what they're going to be, you're just placing stars. So if I place a star here, this star is not yet any specific ability. It's either any one of the three abilities, and then I activate it with the according button to select what I want it to be. So you're going into your astral form, which you're going to want to do in a particularly safe spot. You're not going to want to do stuff in close proximity to enemies. If I know there's a guy here, maybe round this corner, and I want to suck him out of this spot, I'm not going to stand here and place something necessarily, because I'm very close to the person in question. What I might actually do is use my utility and actually let teammates capitalise off my utility rather than myself. It's not like a KO or a Sky Flash where I can relatively easily flash for myself, pop flash or whatever. Most of my util usage is going to be for the team as a whole, or for a teammate that's calling for a specific util, rather than me just using it for myself. She's a very, very team-based character, probably one of the most selfless characters in the game. So you have 4 stars. Obviously I'm in this custom, I have an infinite abilities, but you only have 4 stars, so you can only have 4 of these placed on the map at one given time, and then that's it. And obviously you buy how many stars you want. So on a pistol round maybe you'll have 2 or 3. On an eco maybe you'll only have 1 or 2. On every full buy you're going to buy all 4. You can place them basically wherever you want, and once they're placed they become active within about a second. And you can pre-place stars in the buy phase even before the round's begun, and then they'll become active at like the 1 minute 38 mark after a second or two. So you've placed these, and there's two ways of activating them. You can either remain in the form that you've used to place them, and you can look at them with your sort of your aiming reticle in the form, and they'll go yellow, and then you can activate them and do whatever you want to do with them. Or you can place them, and then if you want to use them at a later date, because not all of your stars will be active. You're not going to play around with all 4 stars in pocket and then see that something happens and then go place and use it. You're going to have some pre-placed that maybe sit there for 20, 30, 40 seconds in a round, maybe longer, maybe never get used. And when you don't need to go into your form, if all you're doing is activating them, you simply look at them through the wall on your screen, and you can activate them. So there are 4 things you can do with your Astra stars. Purely coincidental that you get 4 stars and that there are 4 different things. There's no sort of expectation you have to do 1 of each or anything like that. Although there are limitations to how many things you can do. The first one is a suck, which looks like this. And that pulls people to the centre. And it lasts for 4 or 5 seconds roughly, maybe a bit quicker. And when the suck is finished, it sort of explodes, and what the effect of that is a vulnerability thing, which means anyone caught in it will take double damage from any weapons or explosives. Now you can run away from the suck if you're in it. It's sucking. You can jump and get out of it, but obviously it makes trying to engage in a gunfight whilst you're in one of these is very challenging, because that's kind of the thing. You're kind of going to suck someone, and then someone's going to peek whilst someone's stuck in the Astra suck, and that increases the chance of them winning a gunfight, because the person's either they're trying to run away from the suck, or if they're accepting that they're going to get stuck in the suck, they're pulled into a very specific spot, and then potentially decreased to taking double damage. Half of the time when you're activating this kind of gadget, you're going to be doing it for a teammate. You might even be somewhere else on the other side of the map. Astra's a really global character, which means she's kind of has map presence everywhere in some regard. So I can be anywhere I really want. Like I could have a teammate that's
right there
on heaven and he calls for suck, and I could be over here doing something else, watching this angle, and I can quickly just activate the suck, and then my util's getting value somewhere else. It's assisting another person whilst I'm still able to do something else while the util's going off. So you have one suck, and that has a cooldown amount of time, like a lot of gadgets. You use it regardless of however many stars you have available and what the status of the stars are. The usage of the pull gadget itself has its own independent cooldown, and that it doesn't matter whether you have 4 stars, 5 stars, infinite number of stars. You know, there's a cooldown on the usage of it. I pulled that. Now there's a period of time where before I can use that ability on a star again. The next ability is a stun, which activates a lot quicker than the suck, and that is like a pretty generic stun effect you're familiar with from something like a Skydog, a breach stun, something like that. It reduces movement speed, it reduces fire rate. Kind of similar use case to the suck. They're kind of the same. They're both ways of shifting 50-50 gunfights to your favour. The suck is a little bit harder to run away from, so if there was someone on this angle you could do the suck. Now they have 2 choices. They're either being sucked to this spot, or they're actively running away from the suck, which means they're now off this angle, in which case you can take this control. And then the third thing, and the most important one, undeniably, of course, is the smoke itself. Astra is a smokes character. The suck and the stun are kind of added extras. They're very valuable added extras, but they are not the main thing. The main thing, of course, is the smokes. So, the smokes work the same way. You activate the smoke on a place star, and you have two smokes at a time, and then the cooldown on each smoke will happen individually, just the same way it happens on an omen smoke. That you use one, you use the second, and the first one will start then regenning, and then the second one will regen. And obviously there's a maximum number of smokes you could possibly have in a round, which you can work out. Off the top of my head, I don't know, it's probably like 4 or 5, depending on how far apart you use them or whatever. But you are only going to get 2 at a time, which is one of the disadvantages of Astra, and of course of Omen, and that's one of the advantages of Brimstone, is you get 3 at once. He's the only smokes character where you can have 3 smokes simultaneously detonating. For a lot of sites that doesn't really matter. You've got 2 smoke spots, in some cases even 1. I mean, let's be honest, that's the most crucial smoke spot possible. If you want a second one, you've got one here to take control of this, take more control, and you have sort of full site control once you've killed everyone here. So there are the 3 abilities that you see at the bottom. You have the smoke, you have the stun, and you have the pull. There's also a 4th thing you can do with a star, and that is a recall. And that looks like this. And you look at the star and you press your F key or whatever your interact key is, the same key you use for ropes or triggering a cipher cage. So if I place a star here, I've placed one of my 4 stars and I have 3 in my inventory. Obviously on this you can't see. Imagine one's now missing from my inventory, and I've used it as a suck, or a stun, or a smoke. That's now gone. I've used up one of my 4 stars. If I do a recall, that star now returns to my inventory. Now it can't be used immediately, but it will eventually become available. And there's a cooldown on the star recalls from when you recall them to when they're replaceable. And that's also been increased recently as part of a nerf of Astra, which is one of the things that's taken Astra sort of out of the meta, from being probably the most favourable controller in high ranks and competitive play now, to being in a situation where all of the controllers are kind of equally viable. Some are played more than others for convenience sake now, but they're all good. A short smoke that recalls, and the star will regenerate and be re-available in your inventory after a time. There is a suck that you can use, and that uses up a star. There is a stun that you can use. There's a smoke. That's Astra's sort of regular purchasable util. You enter it by pressing your ultimate button, which enters your astral form. The other thing you can of course do in your astral form is actually use your ult. So in this situation, pressing the ult button doesn't actually use your ult. Your X is what enables you to get into your form, so you're using X every round, unlike other agents. Your left click is placing stars, as you can see on the indicator. If you right click, you've now switched between the star placement and the ult placement, and what the ultimate is a massive cross map wall. So I'll place it now and I'll show you what it is.
Well divided. My ult's ready.
So this is the Astra ultimate. It goes across the whole map in the line, as you can see from the minimap. It is bulletproof. It is somewhat soundproof and very sound resistant at least. But it does not block any gadgets. It blocks weapons. It blocks bullets and jet knives, but it does not block any nades, darts, flashes, any util of that nature. So it's an interesting kind of dynamic to have. Blocks line of sight, blocks bullets, doesn't block abilities, blocks sound to an extent. And try and take advantage of having the whole wall rather than just having a smoke. If I was going to place a wall here, for example, across heaven, I'm not getting a lot of value out of the wall because I'm only really blocking off the heaven angle, and I can do that with a smoke. So what I might do instead is think, can I take like more minimal map control? Because obviously in a regular situation I would need to clear all of this under and CT to be comfortable to plant and that I've had site control. Whereas in this situation with an Astra wall, I can maybe afford to take less of the site, and I can kind of just sort of pick, oh, I want this much of the site, like so, and I wall there. And now,
My ult's ready.
back site is locked off, and my teammates, if I'm coming into plant, someone holds this, and someone holds this swing, and we can actually start a plant with people still backside, enemies still backside, much more comfortably than we could normally. Now you'll notice the wall doesn't actually last for that long. It lasts for a decent amount of time, but certainly not a large percentage of the round. So you're kind of gonna still time it with an execute the same way you would with smokes. You're not just gonna, oh, I have my ult this round, place it at the start of the round or something. It's gonna be a timed thing. And with any other util, you can use it for fakes, for example. I might wall here, sneak out with the wall, and then actually have my teammates hit the other site. And the interesting thing, of course, because they can't hear anything as much, they aren't going to hear the lack of util on the execute or whatever. So you're not necessarily going to hear a plant or the lack of a plant. So yeah, that's the Astra wall. So the way you're playing Astra is extremely passive. Half the time you're not even playing an FPS game. You're playing like a kind of utility simulator. You're in your form. As long as you've got cover, you know, I'm sat here. I have a guy anchoring site, like a cipher. I have a sage as wall mid and is playing mid. I'm safe here. I can sit and I can use my util, and I can do stuff and help my people on A. I can, and this is where I can actually do stuff in the form. It really depends. If what I'm doing is a long way away from me and I know I'm in a safe position, I can just drive around in my Astra form and use all my util this way. Or I may prefer if I'm actively engaging where the util is, then I'm going to do it in regular form, and I'm going to use it like this and act off my util. Let's think of an example of what I might want to do, and I'm going to go and I'm going to turn off infinite abilities. So I now have 4 stars like I would in a round, and I'm going to think, what might I want to do with my stars? So we're hitting B, and I have all 4 stars available. Star number 1 is going to go as a smoke. First and foremost, I'm still a smokes character, so it's going there. Now I have options. I have 3 other stars. I might want to help clear backside. There may be a guy playing here. I want to have maybe my jet dash onto this guy here. So maybe I want to pull or I want to stun. A stun might be better. And I'm going to place it in the corner, because if I place it out here, the stun effect might catch my jet as they try and push. So I'm going to place it in the corner here. And then my jet is dashing up onto site, so I want to maybe reduce the number of angles that they're exposed to. So maybe I want to have a smoke here. Or maybe I want to save that and use that smoke later in the round. So I can actually make use of my recall as a short smoke. In the same way you might use a jet smoke to block off an angle for a couple of seconds. Now this is where I need to communicate with my team well, because it may be that my jet is quite happy to smoke off this angle herself, take this gunfight, and then carry on. But maybe she wants to keep the smoke as a way of maybe dashing into here, and actually I want to smoke this off with a recall or whatever. So for example, I might place that, and we're ready for the execute. The smoke comes out, and I'm ready, and I'm stunning, and I'm recalling that, and that smoke allows someone to come in, challenge the stunned person for a second or two. So yeah, that's one use of the smoke. Don't just think as the F as simply a way of recalling the star. You can make use of the smoke that's left over, for example, on defense. If I just wait for this star to regen. If I place something there, actually I don't need to use it as a suck or a stun. I can use it to get across the angle. Recall. And I'm across. And it's a very well balanced time. It's just enough for me to cross a short angle, but it's not really long enough that it constitutes a smoke in and of itself. So if I was to try and execute on sight with this, it's really, it doesn't serve that kind of purpose, but it does serve that kind of purpose, like a jet smoke, of being able to cross one angle very quickly like that. And I smoke one, smoke there, stun, and we're on sight. This is easier to hold now, because they have to walk out. They can't clear the angle so easily, or they have to use a flash or whatever. And then maybe I've saved my pull as a post-plant thing. So the pull can be used to pull people off of a plant spot. So, say I planted in this corner, I can try and disrupt the defuse. Now this may pull them off the defuse. It may not fully pull them off the defuse, but it's going to do something. It's going to distract them. It's going to make it uncomfortable. It's going to maybe move them a bit. It's going to make them vulnerable, easier to kill if they then decide, I'm being pulled by the Astra pull, I want to get off the plant and then fight the person that's trying to come. They're now on double damage. So yeah. Same with the stun. The stun can be used on post plant as well. But always be thinking about the cooldowns, trying to make use of your stun and your suck in conjunction with your teammates pushing, making sure you're smoking your two most important spots, thinking about creative ways of using the wall, like we said. Maybe you're chopping the map in half. Think about what map control you want. Maybe you want to take a lot of map control, and deny a retake. You want to take quickly into there, or something. You want to do something really strange like that or something, and you want to have someone take heaven control and then play heaven really aggressively and play on this angle really aggressively, holding CT or something. There's lots of things you can do. Only thing that I haven't mentioned is of course the buying of the abilities. These are all you don't buy any of these. They show up in the buy menu as how many you have. All you're buying is your Astra stars for 150 each. So you can see you start with 1. So it's 150. So it's actually only a total of 450 you're going to spend if you're full buying util. So for her impact, Astra's actually pretty cheap in terms of her util. So on pistol round, for example, I have 800. I might choose to go Ghost, which is 500. I have 300 left. That gets me 2 stars. So I can go Ghost and 3 stars on a pistol round, which is pretty good. Or I might choose to go Classic, Light, So the lights cost me 400, so I have 400 left. Now with 400, I can actually still only get 2 stars for 300. I can't get the other one. So you don't actually gain anything in this situation from using classic. You don't get more util if you buy. You could not buy shields, in which case you just buy full util. It really depends on whatever you want to do on pistol round. I would always go Ghost and 3. And then the other thing to know about buying with Astra is your util is important. On buy rounds, if you don't have quite enough and you're having to sort of force buy, you should prioritise the util over armour, definitely. So you would go light gun, or even over having a rifle. If you're playing support, it may be more useful to do that than to try and do something like that where you only have 2 stars but you do have a gun, because that, honestly, if you're using your util well, you can make good use of a Spectre, play close angles, whatever. So yeah, be aware, you are a hard support character if you're playing Astra, and your util and your usage of your util with your team is the most important thing.